Sometimes there may be some neoplastic proliferation in our stem cells, then it may cause leukemia. So this is nothing but dysfunction of precursors of hematopoietic cells and stem cells. So in leukemia, not only not only our precursors get affected, also our stem cells get affected when there is neoplastic proliferation. And bone marrow provides the unique microenvironment for stem cells for its proliferation, for its homing, and also differentiation. Hence, bone marrow is a favorable conditions to form different types of cells. And bone marrow mainly have many stromal cells, and they promote the proliferation. So you can see many not stromal cells, many stem cells. So many stem cells which mainly promote the proliferation. So there are also some soluble factors which are synthesized by mainly genetic recombinant technique, and also they are commercially available. Example, you can take erythropoietin. So erythropoietin is mainly used in chronic failure of kidneys. In this case it is used because erythropoietin plays an important role to produce the RBC, means from the kidney if it is released. We'll see that function also in detail. So if erythropoietin is absent in the chronic renal failure, then for sure we should give extracellular elements by any other process, commercially available erythropoietin. And also second example is like even thrombopoietin are available commercially. Granulocyte monocytes are also nowadays available commercially. So in any case or any disease, if they are needed, we can just give it. So bone marrow stem cells actually present in our bone marrow, we know that. So in bone marrow transplantation, it is mainly injected to the veins of recipient. So if you want to give some bone marrow transplant, we can inject it to the veins of the recipients, then the stem cells start circulating from that veins into every cell, but homing only at the bone marrow and start differentiating and providing the patient with the new RBC WBC platelets. So if someone have bone marrow dysfunction, any other diseases related to bone marrow, we can just give the intravenous infusion of bone marrow transplant, so that now the patient can easily form the RBC, WBC and platelets. And also the bone marrow stem cells can be induced to form hemangioblasts. Hemangioblasts means nothing but endothelial cells. So remember that bone marrow is also useful to form the endothelial cells, and this bone marrow stem cells can nowadays also produce liver cell, biliary duct, and full mature neurons, myocardial cells, skeletal muscle cells. So this is very wonderful. Till now we are saying that bone marrow stem cell is only able to provide RBC, WBC, but now research has also found that bone marrow stem cell can also produce liver cell, biliary duct. So all this myocardial cells, skeletal muscle cells. So all this can be used in some kinds of patients who are lacking this. So that if experiments are successful, now we can use these stem cells to produce different types of these cells and use it for transplantation. And now let us see the anatomy of bone marrow. So mainly bone marrow is made up of network of sinusoids, and these are lined by a single layer of endothelial cells, and of course they are supported by the basement membrane. And this basement membrane, remember, this is discontinuous, as like in capillaries it is discontinuous, like in liver capillaries in many places. So in interstitium of bone marrow, the stem cells differentiate to many of the types. And megakaryotes have finger like process and extend into the sinusoidal layer. So just now we said bone marrow have sinusoidal capillaries. So in between them we have finger like process. Those are nothing but our platelets. So when the blood is passing through this capillaries, the blood flow down into the broken down platelets, because blood, as it is sinusoids, there are gaps between them. In that gaps, as this megakaryocytes are finger like process, so because of high blood flow, this also just get separated and broken down into platelets. So granulocyte precursor cells are also present near the bone. And erythroblasts are the last cell with basophilic cytoplasm at the size of about 20 microns, and it undergoes the differentiation and forms smaller cells about 8 to 7 microns, that is nothing but RBC. So now let us see how the RBC forms. So first proerythroblast is formed, next early basophilic normoblast is formed, next intermediate form is formed, next normoblast, late normoblast, finally reticulocyte. So this is the process of formation of RBC. Proerythroblast, early basophilic normoblast, intermediate normoblast, and next late normoblast, and next reticulocyte. So this proerythroblast is having actually a large nucleus with the basophilic cytoplasm. You can imagine it, very large nucleus, blue color. Completely blue color is a proerythroblast. And next comes the early basophilic normoblast. Basophilic means here only in the name only you can understand it is also blue in color, early basophilic normoblast. And next comes the intermediate normoblast. This intermediate normoblast has multi-polychromatic normoblast. Polychromatic means here you can understand it is not completely blue, it also has some red spots in between. So this size decreases in this process. Early basophil is eosinophilic. Later nucleus condense, mature and disappear. So remember that multipolychromatic normoblasts, the size decreases in this process. So you can see first proerythroblast somewhat bigger, next early basophilic again smaller. So finally when it comes to reticulocytes, it becomes very much smaller. You can see up to 7 microns. So starting it is up to like 20 microns and it finally it has become 7 microns. So that's what they're saying. Size is completely decreasing in this process, and early basophil up to the eosinophilic later means late normoblast. From early basophilic normoblast to late normoblast, the nucleus condense. Nucleus is getting condensed. Starting it is very big, but later it is coming and condensing and also mature and also finally disappear. So as we know in mature RBC there is no RBC. There is no mitochondria. There is no nucleus, no endoplasmic reticulum. That's what we are saying. So in this process of development only you can understand. So at the beginning in the proerythroblast we are having very big nucleus and also we are having bluish color one, and by end of this even the size of RBC is decreasing and also the nucleus also is getting condensed at the end of the process. So that's what they're saying. And remember that intermediate normoblast is multicolored, like polycolored means because of having both red colored and blue color. And now let us see about late normoblast. Of course, clearly it is written as eosinophilic because it is completely red in color. Hemoglobin started forming, so red in color, that is the late normoblast. Now coming to reticulocyte. Reticulocyte is also nothing but called as our matured RBC. So this matured RBC is of course 7 microns. So from 20 microns, the size of RBC is decreased and also the nucleus got completely condensed, and the color is also changing from the blue color to the red color. So these are the changes we need to observe in the formation of red blood cell. So mainly our B12 and folic acid are must for the erythropoiesis, that is the formation of the RBC, that for the nucleus, and also they are required for the nucleus maturation. So if any defect in decrease in the B12 folic acid, then the nucleus is not developed well and it produce more hemoglobin and become megaloblast. So this is very important function. So if the nucleus is not developed well because of any vitamin B12 or folic acid deficiencies, then what happens? The nucleus inside the cell becomes very large. Not nucleus, sorry, hemoglobin in the RBC increases rapidly and it is converting into now megaloblast. So this megaloblast is seen in bone marrow and this is the abnormal normoblast. And the causes macrocytic anemia in blood. It causes macrocytic. In the name you can understand macro means big cell. Macrocytic anemia in the blood. Anemia, why anemia? Because here more hemoglobin is present, but it is a megaloblast and it's abnormally present, abnormal neuroblast. So here macrocytic anemia is caused in the blood. So iron is mainly required for the cytoplasmic maturation, that is for hemoglobin formation, and also they need thyroid hormones, amino acids, growth hormones for this process. So not only if we depend on hemoglobin, we also require some growth hormones, amino acids, thyroid. All these are compulsorily required for the formation of red blood cells. And next, let us see the granulopoiesis. Granulopoiesis is a process where, in the name only you can understand, like we are forming granulocytes, right? So myeloblast first converts into promyelocyte convert into myelocyte into next immature neutrophils, from this into granulocyte and finally into neutrophil. So in the granulopoiesis, it makes about 65% of the cells, and erythropoiesis only makes 25% of the cells. So if you see, granulopoiesis at a higher rate to form more number of cells when compared with the erythropoiesis, and lymphopoiesis make only 10% of the cells. So myelo is to erythro ratio. Of course, myelo will be greater 3 is to 1 because erythro are forming less. So this ratio is very important, 3 is to 1. So bone marrow aspiration. It is nothing but the needle is given to the sternum and its stains are produced, which are easily produced. And next, bone marrow biopsy. A wide needle is used, mainly it is inserted from the post celiac crest and it is completely different when compared with that. And when there is metastasis in the bone marrow, we use this above process and it's better, that is bone marrow biopsy is used whenever there is any metastatic or cancerous growth in a bone marrow. And all the mature products from the interstitium of the bone marrow pass through endothelial cells and enter the sinusoids of the bone marrow by transcellular migration, and this process is also called as diapedesis. We will also see in the textbook. And RBC in the circulation, its lifespan is of 120 days, that is about, you can say, in months, it is like in months. And lifespan of platelets is 7 to 8 days, it's only per week. And neutrophils lifespan is only for a day or 2 day, 24 to 48 hours. And during inflammation, it takes 6 to 7 hours. And memory lymphocytes can live up to years, 20 to 30 years. So these are having longest lifespan. So you can see here what is having the lowest lifespan, and among all this is neutrophil. And next comes our yeah no yeah and next comes our weeks one, that is our platelets, and next comes our RBC. So the greatest one among all this is memory lymphocyte. It stays up to years, like 20 to 30 years. So that's it. We have completed our blood physiology, bone marrow, and hemoptysis, how red blood cells are formed. And we will now also discuss some important points in our textbook, which they are discussed. So here you can see the process of erythropoiesis, right? So here they give an important point, like the bone marrow is of essentially all bones are produced red blood cells until a person is 5 years old. The marrow of the long bones except for the proximal. Yeah, we have discussed this already. And I found something important is like, yeah, growth and reproduction of different stem cells require some growth inducers. As we said, growth factors there are also nothing but called as growth inducers. And one of these growth inducers are like interleukin 3, which mainly promotes the growth and reproduction of all different types of committed stem cells. Especially committed stem cells are having effect by interleukin 3, that we need to remember. And the growth inducers also promote the growth, but not differentiation of the cells, which is important. So this function of differentiation is done by differentiation inducers, and each of these differentiation inducers cause one type of committed stem cell to differentiate to one or more steps towards the final adult blood cell. And exposure of blood to low oxygen for a long time causes the growth, induction, differentiation, and also production of greatly increases the number of erythrocytes. So always remember, whenever there is low oxygen to the cell, especially to our erythrocyte, it leads to formation of more number of erythrocytes. It's like a feedback mechanism. So in the case of like negative feedback mechanism, so in the case of some of the white blood cells, infectious diseases cause growth, differentiation, eventual formation of special types of white blood cells that are needed to combat the each infection. So even in the case of diseases also, more white blood cells are formed so that we can provide the immunity for that specific disease. So all these are like some feedback mechanisms. So you can see here the relative rates of red blood cell production in a bone marrow of different bones at different ages. So you can see tibia, it's seen even at shaft when we are at a younger age, and in fever also it is seen at shaft when a younger age, but later on till puberty you can see in rib, sternum, and vertebra, but later only in the proximal ends we can see. That is formation of red blood cells or any other blood cells of our body. So this is like a complete chart overview to understand very clearly the hematopoiesis process. So you can see this is a pluripotent, as we have discussed, pluripotent next into multipotent. So this multipotent are also called as like colony forming units. So first you can see pluripotent hematopoietic stem cell, it is converting into lymphoid stem cell and myeloid stem cell, and these are also separating into colony forming units. So this colony forming unit is for B, means here they're written as blast, here erythrocytes, which form erythrocytes. You can see GMNs are granulocytes, monocytes. You know what are the granulocytes? You can remember it them like Ben 10, Ben 10 cartoon. So you can remember it like Ben. Ben means basophils, eosinophils, neutrophils. So these are the granulocytes. And monocytes, which form our macrocytes, you can see. And we also have megakaryocytes, which form the platelets, colony forming unit of megakaryocytes. And lymphoid stem cells, they mainly form T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, and also they can form the natural killer cells. So here mainly we need to discuss one more case. When a person becomes extremely anemic as a result of hemorrhage or any other condition, the bone marrow mainly begins to produce large quantities of red blood cells. So that's what we have discussed. Any case of disease or anything, it's like negative feedback inhibition, our red blood cells start firing. So whenever we have seen in X-ray for these conditions, like whenever there is any serious anemia in one patient and we are checking that X-ray, then we have seen that most of the bone marrow is like almost broken to produce that RBC. It's inside the layer is completely broken. You can see attempt to supply the demand. Almost the marrow, especially is causing hyperplasia of the bone marrow. So in an attempt To decrease this anemia, our bone marrow also undergoes the process of hyperplasia and also completely may somewhat distract inside to form the red blood cells. So we also have one case like in tissue hypoxia, whenever we go to higher altitudes, our oxygen supply to our body decreases. So in this case also our bone marrow tries to produce more amount of blood cells, and also you can see here whenever there is severe tissue hypoxia, then also our bone marrow tries to produce more amount of blood cells. So yeah, this one plays in a very important. You can see whenever there is very low oxygen to our cells, you can see the principal stimulus for red blood cell production in low oxygen state. It's mainly because of the circulating hormone erythropoietin. So this erythropoietin is usually a glycoprotein and its molecular weight is, you can see, in the absence of erythropoietin, the hypoxia has little or no effect to stimulate the red blood cells. So erythropoietin plays in very important. So till now we are saying whenever there is low oxygen to tissue, it gets activated and form red blood cells. So how it is forming? What is activating? It is mainly erythropoietin, which activates the formation of again red blood cells whenever the tissue oxygen is low. You can see here from kidney erythropoietin is released and hematopoietic stem cells, so that proerythroblasts convert into red blood cells. So tissue gets whenever tissue again gets oxygenated, then this decreases the erythropoietin. So erythropoietin is activated whenever there is hypoxic conditions. So this point is important. 90% of erythropoietin is formed in the kidney. Only remaining part is also formed in the liver, and erythropoietin is mainly secreted by fibroblast-like interstitial cells, which are surrounding the tubules in the cortex and also outer medulla, where much of the kidney's oxygen consumption occurs. And it likely that other cells, also including renal epithelial cells, also secrete the erythropoietin in response to hypoxia of the cell. So renal tissue hypoxia mainly leads to increased tissue levels of hypoxical inducible factor, that is HIF1, so which serves as a transcription factor for large number of hypoxic endometrial cell genes, including erythropoietin gene. So this HIF1 binds to hypoxia response element in the erythropoietin gene and inducing the transcription, so that when transcription started, RNA forms and ultimately protein synthesis starts. So erythropoietin synthesis takes place. So here in this erythropoietic function we have understood just now, not only reduce oxygen supply to kidney also initiates erythropoietin, but also in some other cells like in our other body cells also, whenever there is low oxygen, then also it activates erythropoietin. Then what activates erythropoietin when from other tissues? That is nothing but our epinephrine and norepinephrine. You can see the epinephrine and norepinephrine gives the signals to our erythropoietin whenever there is decrease in oxygen to the other cells. But in kidney itself, if there is low oxygen, then erythropoietin itself can get on. But when other cells of our body get affected because of hypoxia, then mainly epinephrine, norepinephrine give the signal to our erythropoietin to start its work. And also prostaglandins also play an important role in this process. So here we also need to cover this important flow chart like thing. So you can see that is for formation of RBC, just genesis of RBC. So we know proerythroblast into basophilic erythroblast, also called as early normoblast, and later it is called as polychromatophil erythroblast, intermediate normoblast also called as, and next orthochromatic erythroblast, that is late normoblast, and finally reticulocytes form, which is nothing but forming a mature RBC. So you can see here the microcytic hypochromic anemia is a sickle cell anemia. Megaloblastic cells are very large. Erythroblastosis fetalis. So this is seen mainly in Rh negative mother. So we will see all those conditions later so that you can easily understand. So you can see here for the maturation of red blood cells, mainly two vitamins are very important, that is vitamin B12 and folic acid. So both of these are essential for the synthesis of DNA because each in different ways required for the formation of thymidine triphosphate, which is one of the, remember, thymidine triphosphate, which is one of the essential building blocks of DNA. Therefore, lack of B12 or folic acid causes abnormal and diminished DNA and consequently leads to failure of nuclear maturation and also cell division, that is red blood cell will not form. So very importantly we need vitamin B12 and also folic acid. So this produce mainly larger than red cells called macrocytes, and itself has a flimsy membrane and is often irregular and oval instead of bicone. So if there is low B12 or low folic acid, then what happens? Macrocytes are formed which are irregular, they are oval instead of biconcave, and also they are stuck in a narrow vessels. So as they're stuck in a narrow vessels, you can understand macrowaves come and just close its life. So then fragility causes short life. So therefore it is said to deficiency of either B12 or folic acid causes maturation failure in the process of erythropoiesis. So this is very important to take home. So you can see in which the basic abnormalities, atropic, yeah, and one more thing you can see is a maturation failure caused by poor absorption of vitamin B12 from the gastrointestinal tract. This is called pernicious anemia. So even though we have vitamin B12, but our body is not able to take it up by, in which the basic abnormality is seen in atrophic gastric mucosa that fails to produce normal gastric secretions. So the parietal cells of the gastric gland secrete a glycoprotein called as mainly intrinsic factor, which combines with the B12 in food and makes it available for the absorption by the gut. So it does this following way, like intrinsic factor binds tightly to vitamin 12, and in bound state only vitamin 12 is protected from digestion by gastrointestinal secretion, and still in the bound state the intrinsic factor binds to specific receptor site on the brush border membrane of mucosal cell in the ileum, and then vitamin B12 is transported into the blood during the next few hours mainly by the process of pinocytosis, that is carrying along with intrinsic factor and the vitamin together through the membrane. So lack of intrinsic factor therefore decreases the availability of B12 because of faulty absorption of vitamin. So here mainly intrinsic factor is playing a role. So if there is no intrinsic factor, you can't absorb the vitamin B12 and it may also lead to deficiency, that is called as pernicious anemia. So the first stored in large quantities in the liver and then released slowly as needed by the bone marrow. That is about our B12. Uh, so the minimum amount of B12 required each day to maintain the normal red cell maturation is only 1 to 3 micrograms, and the normal storage in the liver and other body tissues are 1000 times this amount. So therefore 3 to 4 years of deficiency of B12 absorption are usually required to cause the maturation failure anemia mainly. And you can see the failure of maturation caused by deficiency of folic acid, that is also called as steroyl glutamic acid. So folic acid is normal constituent of green vegetables, fruits, meats, especially liver. So however it's easily destroyed during cooking. Also people with gastrointestinal absorption abnormalities such as frequently occurring small intestinal disease called sprue often have serious difficulty to absorb both folic acid and vitamin B12. So therefore in many instances of maturation failure cause deficiency of intestinal absorption of both folic acid and B12. So now let us see is this poor also we'll see later. First we'll see the summary which regulate the erythropoiesis and maturation of RBC. So hormones are mainly erythropoietin, androgens, thyroid, corticosteroid. Vitamins are mainly B12, intrinsic factor, folic acid, pyridoxine, vitamin C help in iron absorption, and minerals are iron and copper. So you can see here factors affecting maturation and erythropoiesis: hypoxia, erythropoietin, dietary protein and energy, vitamin B12, folic acid, pyridoxine, riboflavin, niacin, ascorbic acid also known as vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, iron, copper. So these all we know. So we have discussed everything, almost everything in this chapter very clearly. So here we'll see some of the glossary of the term sprue. Sprue means a tropical sprue commonly found in a tropical areas, being a condition in which there is mainly malabsorption of many nutrients from the small intestine due to abnormally flattened villi. If the villi are flattened, they can't absorb the nutrients, and inflammation of small intestinal mucosa. So yolk sac, it's a membranous sac attached to an embryo, providing the early nourishment to the baby. So that's it, yeah, to the embryo. So that's it about this. So if you like our videos, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.